You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again to the Mighty Blue podcast. I am Mighty Blue, and each week we bring you hikers, both on and off the trail, with stories that I know inspire some of you to get out there and try this old backpacking thing yourself. As you're learning, backpacking does so much for you, and it's only by doing it that you can find that out. Our main guest today is Anna McKinney Smith, or Magic. Anna hiked the trail in 2021, kind of stumbling into it really, when she headed out there with three of her friends. All of them made it to the end, by the way, which is a bit special. But on the way, Anna met the bloke who would become her husband, and she fell in love not only with him, but she also fell in love with the trail and the community of hikers. We'll hear from Anna in a moment. Dave Santee is closing in on 500 miles already, and by the time you hear this, he should be in or around the Grayson Highlands, passing that important milestone. Meanwhile, Beth and Andrew are 2 weeks into their hike, and they continue to have a blast. Though, as you'll hear, Andrew had a 24 hours during which anything that could go wrong did go wrong. We'll hear from the two of them after we hear from Dave. I should say at this point that my Camino hike looks like a go, so I've been experimenting with ways in which I can get the show to you, of not only my Camino, but keeping up with Beth, Andrew and Dave. We used FaceTime this week, recording the call. It generally worked okay. In fact, their end of it sounds fantastic, though mine wasn't as good. With Dave, I used my Apple AirPods, and that didn't capture my voice all that well, but the sound with Beth and Andrew is much better. Don't worry, I'll eventually get it right. So let's move on and meet another of those intrepid young women. This is Anna McKinney Smith, or Magic. Oh, I should point out, by the way, that Anna appears to be sitting in a park somewhere. I'm not entirely sure why that happened, but you're going to hear some background noise, but the conversation's fine. Here she is. We've got another of those phenomenal young trail women on the show today. This is Anna McKinney Smith, or Magic. Hey, Anna, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
Great trail name, by the way. Why Magic?
So I feel like a lot of people usually have pretty interesting trail names, or they have a really cool backstory. My story is just that I got a lot of trail magic, or people said that I got a lot of trail magic in the beginning of the Appalachian Trail.
What,
I don't think that I got more.
Young woman got a lot of trail magic. How unusual that is.
It's shocking. I don't think that I got more than anyone else, but my friends that I was hiking with at the time seemed to think that I did. And so magic was given to me pretty early on in Georgia, and I have stuck with it ever since.
But somebody did try to change your trail name, didn't they?
Yes, it is kind of a funny story. So I ended up meeting my husband on the Appalachian Trail, and he was hiking with his brother.
By the way, you didn't just meet him. It wasn't your husband already. It's the man who became your husband, you mean? Yeah.
That is correct. I met this hairy mountain man in the woods who I took a liking to, and then our trail romance progressed and bloomed into a real life romance, and now we're married. But so I met him, and we were hiking together. He was hiking with his brother, and then along the way they had developed a pretty large trail family, and I just kind of fell in with those guys. And somewhere in New York, I think it was, we were talking about our trail names, and Caleb, my now brother-in-law, Hangman is his trail name, and Hangman had said, Magic, like, we haven't gotten trail magic here in a while, because I was really adamant. I had woken up that morning like, hey, I think we're going to get trail magic today. I just had a feeling. And he was very much just like, we haven't had trail magic. You're totally crazy. If you're wrong, you don't get to keep the name Magic anymore. Ooh. And they had proposed that my new trail name would be Thumb Thumb, because in addition to trail magic, I was also very good at getting hitches. I know, shocking as a young woman on the trail.
That never happens.
No, never. So it was proposed that I would be Thumb Thumb, but again, I was very persistent. We were going to get trail magic. And we get to the top of Bear Mountain in New York, and lo and behold, there was a former thru-hiker, and her dad posted up doing trail magic. I think that was the only trail magic that we got in the whole state of New York. But I had a premonition that it was going to happen that day.
Well, I got to say, that changed a lot of things, because we're going to talk about your blog later, but I think your magic in the mountains, Thumb Thumb in the mountains, don't sound anywhere near as nice, does
Exactly.
it?
And folks that are around my age probably have a very vivid mental picture when they hear the name Thumb Thumb. Spy Kids was a movie franchise that was popular when I was young. The villains in Spy Kids were called Thumb Thumbs. Right. So that's where that comes from.
Growing up in Britain, I would not know that. I don't think it played over there.
You're not missing out. Don't worry.
Right. Now, you hiked the trail in 2021, I believe, in your mid-20s.
I was 24.
Oh, right, 24. What were you actually doing for a living at the time?
So I had actually been laid off right before going onto the trail. But prior to that, I had been working as a child life specialist. So my role was working on a pediatric unit, helping pediatric patients and their families cope with hospitalization. So I did a lot of education on the medical environment. So helping to explain to kids at an age-appropriate level what things like an MRI are, or IVs, or you're having surgery. Let's talk about what that means, and helping kids just understand at a level that they can process, to where they can then figure out the skills that are going to help them cope with that can be very traumatizing experience. So that was what I did.
Must be quite tough on you mentally as well, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it definitely could be. The job, kind of like the trail, the highs were really high and then the lows were really low. And so there would be some days at work at the hospital that I would make slime with these kiddos, or we would spend hours playing Mario Kart, or just doing fun things to let kids be kids. But then there is also another side of it where you are helping these kids and these families process these really challenging life events. So maybe it's a new diagnosis. Maybe a child's been diagnosed with cancer, and you're helping them to understand, like, what does this mean? Maybe a family member has been in an accident and they are going to pass away, and Child Life gets called to help with memory making. And so that could be taking handprints of these people or this person that might be on life support.
Sure.
I've walked with patients before to the operating room as family members have been taken off life support.
Oh, gosh.
To then, lots of really challenging moments in that job as well. It's easy to look back and think of the fun times.
And you haven't actually mentioned that was also the time of COVID. So people were also dying of COVID at that stage as well. Were you involved? Did that hit you or hit your hospital?
It did, yeah. I worked at the hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, where I'm from, and things were very different at that time. It was a really scary time. I think a lot of healthcare professionals would go into work every day wondering, am I going to be able to come home tonight? Is this going to be the day that the other shoe falls?
Sure.
And it was a very challenging time. I wasn't one of the frontline people by any means, but even just being in proximity to those coworkers that were, there was a lot of stress going on, a lot of grief, and a lot of uncertainty.
So you let go at the end of 2020. Was being let go the catalyst that got you out on the trail, or did you then think of going to another career? What were you looking? What was your state of mind at the time?
Yeah, I was devastated when I lost my job. I was laid off with multiple other people in the healthcare organization that I worked with as a downsizing after COVID.
Sure.
And I didn't know what to do with my life. And I had some friends that had been talking about doing the AT, and I asked if I could come along, and they said yes. So that was what got me onto the trail. I decided, I think in December of 2020, that I was going to hike, and we started in March of 2021. It was a very short timeline.
Yes, it's because most people, it's the dream of a lifetime. They put off and eventually they do it. For you, it was a kind of spur of the moment thing, I presume. Had you been a hiker? And growing up near Asheville, you must have known the mountains and the trail.
Yes, I in my early adulthood had become more of a hiker. Growing up, my family wasn't super outdoorsy. We camped, but camped in a camper. And as I got into high school, I didn't want to be outside at all. I had other things that were occupying my attention.
Boys.
But when I
boys.
Boys, all the other things. It's so funny to look back at the person I was then, because I was very like any teenage girl, was very focused on my looks and what my future would hold. And I have turned out to be very different than I think 18-year-old Anna would have expected. But I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
You recognize that? You recognize that? You recognize that in yourself, do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that my younger self would be very inspired by my older self, but also maybe a little intimidated of just like, oh my goodness, this woman poops in the woods for a living? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, you don't actually do that for a living, pooping in the woods for a living, but
not pooping in the woods for a living, but
you
not yet anyway.
And when we spoke before, when you got into backpacking a bit when you were in college, and you were watching an outdoor leadership program, and you led trips, went to the Grayson Highlands and so on, which we'll talk about later on what you did later. But so what was that like for you? Did you find that? I mean, if you were still a young person and you were leading trips, I mean, why were you the leader?
Just because I was, quote unquote, on staff with this outdoor leadership program.
Oh, simple as that, right? All right.
Oh, I know. It's, I was at the time, I think I had my wilderness first aid certificate. But yeah, they let us load up in one of the university vans and got to the Grayson Highlands for a weekend.
Nice.
Which I guess they let a lot of young people do that at other universities too. But in hindsight, I'm just like, man, I feel like we needed more supervision than we had. I don't remember us getting lost or anything like that. Yeah, like we were fine.
Exactly. No one died, did they?
No one died. It is very funny, though, to look back at photos from that trip specifically, because that was the first time I'd ever gone backpacking. The pack that I was in was like a rental from the university. It didn't fit me at all. It was super duper heavy. I had a bunch of stuff like clipped on to the back of it. Like, I'll have to share with you some of those pictures, because it is very, very funny to look at where I started and look at where I am now.
Yeah. And you when we spoke before, you said that you loved the camaraderie. There was pain, but you loved the camaraderie. And then you said something that was quite interesting. You said you found something within you that you didn't know was there. There was a common purpose of forward momentum. Was that?
Yes.
Was that encompassing everything to do with that trip? Is that what it was all about? Pushing forward?
Yeah, very much so. And I think it's not something that was unique to that trip per se. I think that is what resonates with a lot of backpackers is you have this very simplistic goal, whether it be hiking from Georgia to Maine or hiking from Mexico to Canada, or even just going out for a day hike. Like, you have a goal of getting to this point and being able to reach that goal. It's a very tangible experience.
Sure.
You're able to see like, oh, wow, like I can do this stuff. Like, this was hard, but I persevered. And it's something that I think that was really what resonated with me at the time to want to continue pursuing these very physical endeavors.
And you already said that you didn't have much time prepared. You just decided sometime around Christmas, I presume, to go, and then you were actually on the trail less than 3 months later, or no, about 3 months later. How did you prepare for this? I mean, physically and gear and mentally. I mean, what did you do to get yourself ready for this?
It was very much a rushed effort. At the time, I think I said I was 24, and so I thought that I was in pretty good shape. I worked part-time as a zipline guide in Asheville, North Carolina, and we got to, like, quote-unquote hike around the zipline course, so I thought I was really fit from doing that. I was also just young, and I think there's a lot to be said about being young and just being kind of overly ambitious when it comes to physical pursuits.
Certainly overly confident. We all were.
Overly
at
confident.
Your age, we all were.
The word. Yeah. Yes. But I really didn't do a whole lot to train physically. I just went. I tried to get out as much as I could and hike and backpack. I did try to do a shakedown hike with some of my friends that we started the AT together. We went out to try to do the Foothills Trail in South Carolina, which is, I think it's 77 miles.
Yeah,
we were trying to do it over a week, and I bailed out on the third day.
Oh.
Like it was awful. I had all my gear that I was trying to take with me on the AT. This was 1 month prior to leaving to start the AT, and I was just so vastly underprepared. It was the first time I'd put up my tent. I can also share pictures with you from that trip too, because my pack, I carry a 60-liter pack, and it was so full it like wouldn't close. It was ridiculous. And the fact that my friends were supportive of me during this time. We're just like, yes, Anna, like, it's okay. Like, you can still try to do the AT with us. Is just shocking to me. But I learned a lot from that trip.
It must have given you pause, though. It must have given you pause, thinking, well, if I can't cope with this after 3 days, two and a bit thousand miles is going to be a whole lot more. So what did you do when you went back home? Did you just look at your kit again? What did you do?
Yes, I went home and purchased some different gear on that trip. I sleep really cold, and that was something that I learned. We did the Foothills Trail in February and had several very cold nights, and so I purchased a 0-degree sleeping bag because I was so concerned about being cold, which in hindsight is very excessive because it was super duper heavy. But what's the saying? You pack your fears. And
Absolutely.
So my fear was being cold, and so there ain't no way I was going to let myself be cold. I was going to carry all the stuff that I needed to. But then too, I learned a lot at the beginning of the trail and made a lot of adjustments to my kit as well, like switched out some of my cooking stuff and figured out that I didn't need my 0-degree bag and switched out things as I went. The AT, I think, compared to other long trails, is a great place to start because there are a lot of opportunities to have access to be able to switch out things, and it's so crowded. You can learn from all these other peoples. I think the room for error is much more generous compared to other trails, just based off of it being less remote.
I did exactly the same thing. I was making mistakes all the damn time, and then once you make a mistake, you try not to do that thing again, and that is how you manage your hike, and you get through on it. So you went on the trail with pretty much a completely clean sheet. No job, no relationship, I presume, or did you say goodbye to a boyfriend? Or
No, I had a boyfriend that we had been together for several years prior to that, and like a month before I left, he broke up with me, and I was very upset.
Because you were going on the trip. Because you were going on the trip.
I think that was the catalyst, if I remember correctly. But I think too, like looking back at it, it's like, oh my goodness, what was I doing with him for so long? It ended up being a very good thing. But yeah, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a partner, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have debt. It was a great opportunity to run into the wings.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's a great opportunity to go for that walk in the woods. But did you have a plan when you got back, or did you think that will take care of itself? Let's not worry about that now.
Yeah, I did not have a plan. My plan, I guess, was to just come back and try to find another job, which I am very much a planner. Like, it is surprising to see how I like the version of myself that I am on trail, because I can be a lot more go with the flow. In my everyday life, nice. I'm really not that way. I'm pretty detail oriented and can be a little bit type A, maybe touch OCD. But on the trail, I think things are just so simplified that your only focuses are really just those basic necessities. Where am I going to sleep? How am I going to get food?
Sure.
How's my body responding? You don't have all of these other dynamics that you're trying to navigate around.
And so when you got started, by the way, you started on the same date as I did, the 22nd of March. I was a few years
That's
before
awesome.
we went, but it's 22nd of March was, yeah. And you finished on the 7th of September, I believe. So did you take to it straight away? You kept making mistakes. And how about the physicality of those early miles? Because Georgia is not easy. So did it knock you out at all?
Yeah, I remember being in a lot of pain, but I think a lot of people are. I think that is their experience. I honestly believe now that you can start the trail a lot more in better shape, and you will minimize the pain that you experience in the beginning, but there's always going to be growing pains no matter what. The only way that you can replicate hiking from sunup to sundown is from hiking from sunup to sundown.
Sure.
Your body has to get used to being on your feet all day and from walking constantly. And the growing pains can be really challenging. And thankfully, the people that I started with, my two friends, Bugbite and Ranger, we all had agreed that we did not want to do big miles out of the gate. We were very rigid.
Good choice.
Wanting to do around 10 miles for the first week, and we worked up from there. I don't think we did, or I didn't do a 20-mile day until like my first month on trail. But I had worked my way up to that at that point, and it felt pretty good.
So you went out on the trail with two friends. How long were you with them for? Because you told me already that all three of you finished, which is quite remarkable for three of you to start and three of you to finish. But you weren't all together, were you, the whole time?
No, we did not finish the trail together, but we are all still great friends. It's not like we had a falling out or anything. We just hiked at different paces, and we had a pretty frank conversation before we started the trail of what are our expectations with going into this as a group. Are we going to try to stay together? What happens if one of us wants to hike slower, one of us wants to hike faster? And so we knew going into it that there was a very good possibility that we would separate. And we stayed together for the first 300 miles. It wasn't until Hot Springs. Yeah. It wasn't until Hot Springs that Ranger, who hikes significantly faster, she jetted on up ahead, and then Bugbite and I separated in Irwin, Tennessee. I think Ranger finished almost a month ahead of me. I finished in 5.5 months, and she finished in 4.5.
Wow.
She's very fast.
Not hanging about at all.
Oh my goodness, no. And she ended up meeting her partner on trail as well. And they
that happens so much
fast.
So, doesn't it? It really does.
It's amazing. I wouldn't recommend it as a place to meet a person. Like, don't go looking for love on the trail, but it definitely happens. But I think Bugbite finished maybe a week or two ahead of me. But yeah, we finished together. We're all still very, very close. And I'm just so, so grateful for their influence in my life, because I don't think that I would have set out to do the AT without them.
And you're all thru-hikers, which is, you've got that fantastic thing in common with each other, which is wonderful. Yeah. And how did you, before you met your now husband, how did you find the social side of a thru-hike? Because it isn't for everybody. And you're three young women together. I suspect you, without being too crude about it, guys were like you, like flies around honey, weren't they, I presume?
I feel like the trail, and I will say this with the caveat that I feel like I can be not necessarily naive, but I definitely tend to see the best side of everyone, and I want to believe the best of everyone until I'm proven wrong. And so I don't think that we got more attention than anybody else or anything like that, but maybe that's just me looking at it with rose-colored glasses. I don't know. But I love the social aspect of trail. I am very much a social butterfly. Being able to meet new people every single day was perfect for me. I loved having new people to talk to constantly and building these friendships. I did think it's pretty crazy and funny to think that like I remember hiking specifically with one person for a day, and like learning a lot about him, a lot about trauma and his past and his family, and just things that I don't even know if I would talk about with a close friend. But we got really deep, and then I never saw him again after that next day. Like, it is crazy. I think there's something about being able to just walk and be in nature that people are really willing to open up and be vulnerable in ways that they wouldn't in the everyday world. And I experienced that a lot too as a backpacking guide, because that's what I went into after the AT. My clients would develop these really tight knit bonds after only a couple days with each other on trail, and being part of that, I think, is universal to the trail community.
I agree. Totally. Now, what's your husband's name, by the way?
His name is Cade, like Cade's Cove in the Smokies.
Okay. So
his trail name, though, is Truffles.
Truffles, great name. So you met Cade, or Truffles, somewhere in Virginia. He was hiking with his brother, I believe.
Yes, with his brother.
Do you remember the moment you met him? And was it kind of an instant attraction thing, or what?
I do remember the moment that we met. It was a one-sided attraction, I will say. He and I have talked about this a lot.
Which side?
Thought he was very... he has said, God bless him, that he knew from the moment that we met that we were going to be together, which I think is very sweet. I had no such ideas because I was just out there to have a good time. I wasn't thinking about making these kind of romantic connections. But we talked, we connected. We were at the Four Pines Hostel in Virginia, which is just like right before you go over
McKinney Knob, McKinney Knob.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there were a bunch of hikers there, and I feel like there were two like little bubbles of people talking together, and I'm in one bubble and he's in another, and I hear this very thick Southern accent, which gets me excited because I, if you haven't figured out, have a Southern accent. And so I wanted to know where this guy was from. And so I go over, and first thing that I say to him is, where are you from? Because you sound like I do. And he's from Burnsville, Mississippi. And I freak out because I'm from Burnsville, North Carolina.
Oh, Lord.
So that was our like common connection point. And we talked for the rest of the evening, and hiked around each other for the next couple of weeks, developed this connection, and then parted ways to go into Shenandoah. I hiked into Shenandoah National Park, and he and his buddies chose to aquablaze. And so we had a very dramatic like last interaction. We had breakfast together at the hotel in Waynesboro, and I remember we said bye, and then he called back to me and said, I just need you to know that you deserve to be happy. If you ever are down or having a hard time on trail, like, please know that you can call me. It was just very sweet, very supportive. And we kept in touch. We texted some, and I hiked through Shenandoah and southern Pennsylvania by myself, or just like bopping around with different people. I didn't have a trail family really. And I got pretty lonely, honestly, because again, I am very social. I felt like there were always people around, but there weren't these people, the specific group that I was doing stuff with. And so I missed that. And so I texted him, which was like, hey, like, where are you? I would like to come and hike with you and your trail family. And they slowed down so that I could catch up. And that was
the rest is history. The rest is history, as they say.
History. Yep.
Now, I've got in my notes here, which I'm sort of doubting it's true, so we might have to cut this one out. But my question was going to be, and then you were kidnapped. Were you kidnapped?
I was not kidnapped. I will put this disclaimer on there. But my friends like to say that I was kidnapped because we've talked about how I was good at getting hitches. I was hiking in Shenandoah with some buddies, or maybe it was right before Shenandoah. It was going into Waynesboro. So it was right before Shenandoah. Yeah. Was hiking with Gooey and Pegasus, and we were road walking along the Blue Ridge Parkway, and this truck pulled up with the truck bed and was like, hey, like, do you guys need a ride? I wasn't actively trying to hitch, but I'm not going to turn down a ride. I mean, the trail provides. So we said, yes, we're trying to go to
you yellow blazer. Oh,
I am very far from a purist. I also should have announced that. But we got into this truck, and we were trying to go up the trail to meet back up with Truffles and Hangman, Pimento, and our whole crew. And the driver of the truck, I guess, misunderstood where we told them that we were trying to go and drove us all the way into town.
Oh dear,
and
that's not good.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we were planning to get to town like the following day. And so we beat our friends there by a day. And whenever they got there, they all were just like, oh my goodness, you guys are, like you said, dirty yellow blazers. I can't believe you would do this. And so our defense was, no, we were kidnapped. We tried to get them to let us out and they just drove us straight here. We couldn't do anything. So that's just the funny story with that. So no, I was never in any danger. I was safe.
So my notes were very thin on that, and I was kind of concerned about whether I should ask you that or not. So you carried on with Truffles and the rest of his team. You got all the way to nearer and nearer Katahdin. Were you getting nervous as you approached Katahdin because you were going to go your separate ways afterwards, weren't you? Or had you already decided there might be some life after the trail?
Yeah, we had a lot of very frank discussions of what do we want this relationship to look like. I feel like once we had established that there was this connection between the two of us, it became pretty clear that we were in love and did not want to part ways. But again, he was from Mississippi, I was from North Carolina. Sure. How were we going to make that work? So we started talking about what that would look like, and ultimately had just decided that we would be long distance and try to see where that would take us. It didn't take us long, though, after we finished the trail to figure out that being long distance was really challenging, but also we had returned to work in our respective fields. Cade is an engineer. I went back to work in healthcare, and we were pretty miserable.
He can work anywhere as an engineer.
He can do anything. Yeah. I like to joke because his brother is also an engineer, and hiking with them is wonderful because any problem that we encounter, they're going to be able to fix it in some way. So we have gotten very, very spoiled. Like I think specifically in the Whites, where you have to sleep on the established tent pads, they're wooden pads, and we all have trekking pole tents, and so we had like no way to set up our tents, and they like rigged up a way for us to sleep comfortably and set up our tents, and it was great.
Those engineers, they drive you crazy, don't they? Yeah,
I know they can. Man, they're too smart for their own good. You know.
So the great thing is, then you headed up Katahdin, knowing there was some future and so on. So what was the day like? Was it a good day, Katahdin?
No, it was some of the nastiest weather we experienced on trail, which tough. It seems like that is a pretty common denominator, I feel like, for a lot of people. But it also is just like so characteristic of the AT. Like, of course, it's going to be like sleeting and it's going to be cold and there's fog everywhere. Like we can't see anything. It's 40 degrees. So it's like just above freezing. It's very cold and uncomfortable. So we got up there, took our photos, and then got down as quickly as we could. Like we didn't want to hang out up there at all.
And he didn't do that thing of kneeling down by the sign and proposing them.
No, I think I had told you that I was a little concerned that he would, not because I didn't want to marry him. I mean, spoiler alert, we're married. But because I felt like this moment, we had just finished this incredible adventure, and I didn't want this other incredible life milestone to overshadow that, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
I was making problems in my head that didn't actually exist. I was creating problems for myself that weren't real.
But he did actually propose to you eventually on a mountain, didn't he?
He did. It's a kind of funny story too. So I was completely surprised by our engagement. We had worked, so we finished the AT in 2021. We were long distance for a few months, and then in the spring of 2022, we decided to move in together and move to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, to work as backpacking guides in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Nice. So that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years. But it was in October, at the very end of our guiding season, and his family had come to visit us for the weekend. And his brother, who again we did the AT with, was very adamant that he wanted to go for a hike, and I pitched a huge fit. I'm not proud of this, but I pitched a big fit that I did not want to go hiking because I was tired. It was the end of our guiding season. I'd been hiking basically for 2 years straight at this point, and I didn't want to go onto this very busy trail on a Saturday. I wanted to stay home. And
I can see where this is going. I can see exactly where this is
yes,
going. Yeah.
They were very patient and very convincing, and finally got me to agree to go on this hike. So we hiked up the Alum Cave Trail up to Mount LeConte, which is one of the most iconic peaks in the Smokies. The AT doesn't go over top of it.
That's right.
But there's the LeConte Lodge is up there. There's beautiful views. It's a really, really special place. And we get up to the top, and sitting up there at the cliff top, so this iconic view in the park, is our buddy Pimento, who we also met on the AT. Pimento lives in Indiana. There is absolutely no reason on earth for Pimento to be here on this mountaintop. And so I'm really confused. I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, this is awesome. And then I turn around, and there's Cade down on one knee, waiting to propose. So I was very surprised, and it's a miracle that I was there, because I tried really hard not to be that day.
That is so nice. That's really nice.
Yeah,
so
very sweet story.
So the guiding the backpacking trips, do you work for a company, or have you got your own company? What do you do?
Yeah, we both work for a company. It's called A Walk in the Woods. So it's not affiliated with Bill Bryson's book, but it's this mom and pop company that's been around for this, I think, was the 26th season, and it's wonderful. We guide all over the Southeast, primarily in the Smokies, but we also run trips in Pisgah National Forest outside of Asheville. We do stuff in Big South Fork National Recreation Area, which is between Tennessee and Kentucky, and then in the wintertime, we even have some guides that go down to the Everglades to lead trips down there.
Nice.
So we're very busy. It's a seasonal gig, and we've done it for the past 3 years. So this past October was our last season as of right now, because we've got other things that we're going to do in 2025.
You are. But before we go to that, he proposed. I saw your wedding pictures on your Instagram. Shows the two of you get married in a bloody forest.
Yeah.
And you were in a white flowing dress as well. So how did you manage to do that?
So we got married on the AT, which was pretty special.
Oh, was it? Where was it? Where was it?
It was in the Roan Highlands, up from Carver's Gap.
Oh,
yeah.
How nice. How nice.
I have always, since I was a little girl, dreamed of getting married at the Roan Highlands, because when the weather is beautiful, or if it's a good weather day, it's, I think, one of the most beautiful places in the world. You've just got these rolling balds. You've got these, you can see for miles and miles. My favorite flower is the Catawba rhododendron, which the largest natural rhododendron garden, I think, in the world. Maybe I'm misremembering the fact, but there's a natural rhododendron garden up there too, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so I had always wanted to get married up there, and so we planned our wedding to be there, and of course, true trail weather, kind of like our summit day. It was awful. It was some of the worst weather that I've ever been out in. Pouring rain. It was like hovering right around 50 degrees, and we got married in June.
No idea how you got some of those pictures then, because you both look great in your outfits.
Yeah, our photographer was phenomenal. Shout out to Jared Jarvis in Johnson City, Tennessee. He did such a good job, and he was trying so hard to be upbeat, because none of us were having a really good time. It was very cold, and we were very wet, but it was really fun. And it was special too, because it was on the AT. And so every year for our wedding anniversary, he and I go for a hike up there. And it's funny too, because we had originally wanted to get married on the Balds. However, the weather was really bad, so we didn't want to be exposed up there. We didn't want to have our family exposed up there. So we got married. We had our actual ceremony, and Caleb, my brother-in-law, Hangman, performed our ceremony. But we were tucked in a spruce fir forest behind the pit toilets, because that was the only place that there was like a somewhat of a reprieve from the rain.
Marvelous.
Very romantic, very hiker trash.
And for your honeymoon, you did the West Highland Way, I believe, in Scotland, which I did myself a couple of years ago, and it's a great little hike. It's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
But this year, you're going to be heading out to the PCT. Is this a sustainable lifestyle for the near future, or once again, are you going to just work it out, go on the trip, and then see what happens when you come back?
I think that is our plan, to just kind of see where it takes us. We are very fortunate in that we are going to be able to come back to our home, our life in East Tennessee when we finish. Our jobs have been very supportive. They're really excited for us, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we're going to come back and see. I think if we're able to do the PCT, it will be very hard to stop there.
Of
It feels like
yeah.
a long ways in the future. Yeah. I know. It's just like, well, we've done 2 of them. Let's go do the CDT. And then maybe after that, we'll see what happens. I know. But first we got to do the PCT. So I don't want to get ahead of myself there. But yeah, those are our plans.
Now you do your own blog. Is it magicinthemountains.blog, I believe? Magicinthemountains.blog.
It is.
Yeah. So I want to put that in the show notes. Also, you're writing for the Trek also on this trip, aren't you?
I am. I'm blogging for the Trek, which I did in 2023. It was supposed to be a through hike of the Arizona Trail, and it turned into a lash. We did, I think, the first 460 miles, and I blogged for the Trek as well. So yeah, lots of really good stuff. I'm going to be a trail correspondent as well for thru-hiker, which you can find on Instagram. And then I'm also a far out scout. So I got a lot of really cool stuff going on, which I'm excited to be able to.
What does a far out scout entail?
We post photos of us in pretty places.
Oh, right.
Well, my understanding. So it's just another way for people to follow a line. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited about those opportunities and to get to take other people along on the adventure.
I can highly recommend your blog because you talk about your hikes and you've got some really interesting insights as well. So I'm going to put the link to the blog in the show notes as well. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Yeah,
I so appreciate it. This has been so much fun to get to talk to you, Steve.
Nice to talk to you. Take it easy, okay? And enjoy the PCT. Enjoy the PCT.
Thank you.
Cheers then. Bye. I seem to speak to more and more people who met their partner, husband, wife out on trail. I guess I'm kind of surprised that happens. Though on reflection, after speaking with Anna and giving it some thought, a through hike is an intense experience with so many emotions exacerbated. And of course, you meet another through hiker and you have the same goal. So I guess it's actually set up to facilitate these meetings and eventual relationships. Whatever it is, you're bumping into like-minded people when you get out there. So I certainly don't diminish the trail as a place where things happen. How romantic, eh? Now, in my haste to get last week's show to you because of prep for my colonoscopy the following day, I neglected to thank our wonderful donors. So I've got a bit of catching up to do. So thanks go to recurring donors Letitia Webb, Ninka de Huss, Gail Posey, Todd Withrow, Galloway Johnson and Suzanne Johnson. You are all my heroes, and I so appreciate your support. I love it if you would consider donating to the show. It's dead easy, and you can donate via the donate buttons on our website, via Venmo, and even via Zelle. Read the show notes if you'd like to help out. Thanks. Now, the Mighty Blue class of 2025 is in full swing, with Dave Santee on the verge of a special milestone. Here's Dave. Hey Dave, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Steve. Thank you.
Now we're speaking from a very special place in my life, which is Lady Di's. I met Lady Di in 2019 when we were both hiking the Appalachian Trail together, and we hiked together for quite a while. How's she doing?
She's doing great. I didn't realize you had spent some time on the trail together. She mentioned hiking in 2019, and we talked briefly about the fact that I'd heard her record on your podcast, and so I didn't realize there was also that connection of hiking together. But she's fantastic and still doing her thing right here, despite some previous indications that she was considering selling. So
that's right. Yeah. Now, last time we spoke, you were at 19E, I know, and the weather was pretty bad at the time. I understand the weather's turned a bit.
Oh, today is fantastic. It's clear, sunny, a little breezy, but no, it's really nice.
And you told me then that you were heading off Boots Off. Did you enjoy that? Because I love that place.
Boots Off was great, much more eclectic, shall we say? Well, that's a proper adjective, I'd say, for it. And then Lady Di's is really kind of the opposite, being more of more of a B&B than a hostel. Yeah. I mean, you still get the same experience of having multiple bunks in the same room, but otherwise it's a much more.
Now, Boots Off has got some really interesting pods. Did you stay in the pod, or what did you do? Where did you stay?
We stayed in one of the bunkhouses. So the bunkhouses were nice. They were interesting, very comfortable. They're laid out well enough that you kind of felt private, even though you were in a bunk with house with 8 other people. So they were fine. But it's nice to switch the experience to some place like Lady Di's, which is really a nice place, much more elegant, shall we say, and just a little bit different kind of experience. That's all.
Are you headed out from Boots Off, and you say it's 42 miles to Hampton to Damascus from there?
Yeah, we did
in 3
16
days.
Yes, well, we did 16, 16, and 10. So, yeah, 42-ish miles. Hampton's at about 428,
Right.
and Damascus is about 470.
Yeah,
so
nearly 500 miles. Imagine that.
Yeah,
Imagine
I know.
that. Yeah,
I know. We're getting there. The funny thing is, I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, we're gonna Nero into Damascus and only do 10 miles. And she laughed. She goes, a Nero of 10 miles. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, that's the perspective you get at some point, right?
You said that you found your limitations and you felt terrible for the last couple of days. Is that because of the mileage, or as you say, you've been eating like a human garbage can?
No, it was strictly the eating. We got to Hampton last Thursday, I think it was. Shuttled over to McDonald's, ate too much McDonald's food. The next morning, ate too much of the breakfast they offered, ate too much lunch, had a pint of ice cream. I'm skipping the half-gallon challenge when we get to Pennsylvania. Had way too much food for dinner at a Mexican restaurant. By the next morning, I just felt terrible. I spent the first day out of Hampton, 16 miles was the hardest day I've had on the trail.
Oh, really? Really?
Oh, absolutely, without doubt. Not necessarily because of the terrain or geography or anything. I mean, it was a tough day. It was 16 miles and 4,000, almost 5,000 feet of elevation gain. I just had no energy. My stomach felt terrible. I could not eat. I literally had one Cliff Bar for that entire day. That was my entire, so that didn't help.
It's not fabulous planning. It's got to be said.
Nope.
you might want to think about that again and try to do slightly better
than that. Yeah. So we are going to do better.
Is it fair to say, by the way, that your hiker hunger has kicked in?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's the problem. It kicks in, and then you think you're invincible from a food perspective. I mean, I've always been. I joked about the human garbage can. I've always been fairly able to kind of eat whatever I want. I take the seconds off my daughter's plates if they're not finishing it. That kind of stuff. Everybody knows, just give it to dad, right? But that perspective of the human garbage can was tested to its exceeded its limitations. I think the can spilled over. Well, not literally. Let me clarify that.
Now,
but
you said in one of your messages to me that you passed the cool, iconic barn today, which has got the AT on the side, isn't it? And yes. I think up from there, I love that, and I love that spot myself. Now, up from there, there's actually a bench on the trail. It certainly was when I went past, one of the very few benches. I remember sitting there and doing a video commentary and kept using the word wonderful, beautiful, magnificent, because I was running out of words to use. But by this stage, you've seen so much beauty. How are you approaching 500 miles with what you've seen? And does it feel like your job now?
Well, sometimes, but I mean, every time you mention beautiful and wonderful, I feel the same. Like I've run out of adjectives, and I'm starting every time I talk about stuff. It's just the same words, but they're applicable. We reached the barn, which is so iconic, to use that word again, and stopped at there's a concrete watering trough in front of it. I think used for the cattle, and I just kind of sat on the edge of that for 10, 15 minutes. Then I walked a little further and go, oh, there's a bench here. I'm like, well, I already sat for 10, 15 minutes, so I wasn't going to sit again. But that was a couple of days ago, and no, I won't say I reached 500 miles that it's starting to feel like a job. It's my life right now. It's the routine. It's the routine of my day. Every day is, these are the routines you follow, and once it becomes your life, it's what while you're doing it. And so, I don't feel that the repetition or it being a job is impacting anything right now. I'm looking forward to hitting 500 miles. That's a milestone. We'll do that in the next couple of days.
Yeah, in the Grayson Highlands. That's in the Grayson Highlands.
Oh, yes. I forgot. Yes, the Grayson Highlands coming soon, too. So that'll be nice. I know we're not clear of it, but we're starting to run ahead of winter weather, I'd say, a little bit. I mean, although it was pretty bitterly cold. That same day, 2 days ago, when we headed out of Hampton, it was also that I was feeling poorly. It was also a really poor weather day. So it's very cold and chilly, just windy and drab and cold. So you're also extra bundled up. But it's passed already. I feel almost 100% today. So I don't, I was a little momentarily concerned that maybe I'd picked up one of the trail bugs that people try to run away from, but nothing really manifested itself in that regard. I just, started feeling a little bit better.
You lost one of your friends, Old Spice's.
Yes.
He left the trail for good,
or
is he just staying in Hampton for a while?
He just stayed an extra day. Actually, he's now taken 2 days. I just checked in with him. He just kind of some sort of respiratory thing where he's just coughing and, things like that. A cold, maybe we used to call it, right?
Yeah.
He just was feeling cruddy and coughing at night. So he's just resting up. So he seems like he should be 2 days behind us for having taken the 2 extra days of boots off. So, we may pick him up again. It just depends on things. And as it turns out, randomly, I just went back and realized I had watched some of Old Spice's videos back in January, long before
really?
Yeah. Well, he set off in early January and spent quite a bit of time on the trail, and then left for about a month because he's like, this is bananas. I'm going to come back when things are a little bit a little bit better. And so we hooked up with him in the Smokies. But I remember now when I was looking back, because he had mentioned he was doing YouTube. He's not generally like YouTubing day to day for an odd audience. He's doing it regularly, but his intent really is a smaller audience. He's not necessarily trying to reach the world, but his family and friends, and it's public. So if anybody wants to see it, that's Old Spice Hikes or something like that. But I remember that I'd looked and seen his introduction video in early January because I was picking through my videos and I ran across his subscription videos. I subscribed to him when he mentioned it, and you could see that I'd actually watched that first video, and it was a couple months ago. So
yeah. And you say actually you got more trail magic, and I'm trying to imagine where this would be above Watauga Lake. So you go round the lake, don't you?
Yeah.
Then you get
across the dam.
Yeah.
Then you start up again, and you go for half a mile, and you drop down to a road crossing. It's I think it's Watauga Dam Road or something like that.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they had some vehicles parked there, and then you come up out of the roadway, and just about 50 feet above the road, not even, there's a flat area with a sign, about one of the wilderness signs. I can't remember which one it was called. And they had set up some tents there. But that was also the day I was feeling terrible, so I was able to take a small Gatorade from them and nothing else. But they had pulled pork sandwiches. I mean, you name it, they had it. They had a fantastic spread, plus medicinal stuff. I grabbed a couple of antacids, which I hadn't brought with me, and so I'm going to say
that the church groups are pretty great on the Appalachian Trail, aren't they?
Yes.
They are very giving, and they're there. They're there to support people who
absolutely
who are doing this trip. Makes you feel good about them, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This was a Saturday, so this is part of their ministry. So it was interesting because it seemed like a small family group. And they mentioned that they'd been coming out to do it for a while, and then we're talking to their people in their church group, in their church itself, and telling them about what they were doing. And they said, look, we should make this a actual ministry of the church rather than just you guys doing it, privately, shall we say. And so it became more of their outreach. And again, like I said, even at the First Baptist Church in Franklin, nobody's out there trying to grab you and convert you and make you go to their church. They're just happy to serve. They'll mention that, if you want, here's some information, or they have a link on the wall if you want more information about their group or their ministry. But beyond that, there's no pushing or sense of pressure in any regard.
Oh, and when you came into Damascus, I know you go past a diner as well there. And you obviously ate there, of course, because the hiker hunger is real, isn't it, by the way?
It is, and by the time I walked back into Damascus, it was back.
Of course it was. And what state is Damascus now? Is it pretty much open, or is there still places that are closed?
I think if you walked into Damascus today and did not know there had been any problems, you might not realize there had been any problems.
Good Lord.
I mean, it was beautiful, pristine. Everything's open that I could see. Fantastic. I mean, you walk down into Damascus and that little last piece of lawn onto the blacktop, and and it was sunny, and you kind of come out of the woods, and it was just like walking into a welcome mat, right?
Nice. Yes, it is.
You know,
Yeah,
it was
is.
comfortable. You walk across over to where the gateway thing is, across the river into town. Everything was pristine and beautiful. The diner's open. They opened as of last week, so we coming in fifth day of operation.
Happy days.
Clean, yeah, absolutely clean, and because they had to renew everything inside. They had mud up to the 3 or 4 feet up the walls. They said,
Sure.
But no, it was perfect. And so we haven't seen all of town, all that, but just walking through it, walking over to Lady Di's, I could not see anything that struck me as, my God, what happened here? It's beautiful.
You've got a lot to look forward to now. Obviously, the Grayson Highlands, and the weather's starting to get better. That's going to make it much more comfortable for you in many ways.
Yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
coping with the camping at night? You pretty good?
Yeah, in fact, I'm really starting to think about it, and even I think you've mentioned it a little bit. It's like I'm really looking forward to my tent at night. Just kind of like it's your kind of your space, your time to just kind of drill down. I mean, even the other night when I was feeling really bad, that's all I wanted was just to get to camp, lay down on my. As soon as I lay down on my mat, I was like, okay, and I'm okay now. I'm back to
I know where I am. I know where I am. I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's surprising. And there is a routine. You've got into that routine yourself, and it's an important thing to get into. You know where everything is in your pack, don't you? And the other thing I noticed was if things that you're expected to be in your pack in a certain place weren't there, oh my God, I panicked straight away.
Exactly.
I must have put it somewhere else.
I know. I ended up with a bag, one of the bags that holds one of the things. And as I was moving stuff around, it ended up in the bottom of another bag without noticing, and it was gone for a day or two. And I'm like, how do you lose a stupid, one of these little waterproof bags? And, then eventually it turned up when something, else, when I turned something inside out. So if things aren't where you think they are, both in your tent or in your pack, you start immediately think you've lost it.
Yes,
right?
yeah. So you've got, you're into your full state, Virginia. It'd be a long time before you get into your fifth.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but so you're over 20% of the way there. So you're moving through now. The numbers don't lie. The percentage is still true. About 21-22%, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And when you get out of Virginia, it'll be nearly 50%.
That's hard to believe, but yeah, the numbers don't lie, right?
Right. Okay. Well, look, great to hear you're well. Glad you're in Damascus. Say hi to Lady Di for me. And,
I will do.
And we'll catch up next week. Okay.
All right. Fantastic, Steve. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Bye. 500 miles. That is already an epic achievement. And he doesn't appear to be hanging about, does he? And that hiker hunger. It is very real. You truly feel like you can eat without any limits. It looks like Dave may have found his limit this week. When I got to Maine in 2014, there was a time when I was eating a jar of peanut butter a day and 6 Snickers. That's quite apart from my 3 meals a day. My problem was stopping that gluttony when I returned home. It's not easy, I can tell you. Now let's move on to Beth and Andrew. Beth has started sending me these excellent texts that summarise their days and enable me to pick out the things I want to talk with them about. Here they are. Hey Beth, hey Andrew, how are you?
Good, we're good.
Yeah, real good, thanks.
And you're moving through, obviously. Now you sent me some pretty detailed notes, Beth, and I've taken 1 or 2 points out from them, so I'll just go through them. 8 days ago, you were at Dix Creek Gap. You lost your prescription glasses. Were you wearing them? What happened?
No, I never did find them. They were in a pocket of my backpack, but it was not a pocket that was secured. And so I'm sure I threw down my backpack at one point to get something, and then they just fell out. So, yeah, I lost them.
It's funny, though, isn't it? You get used to things being in a certain place, and when they're not there or you just put them in badly, it teaches you something straight away, doesn't it?
Yes, it certainly does.
What have you done? What have you done about them? Are they just for reading?
No, they're not they're for both. They're bifocals. But luckily I can see pretty well far away. So I got a pair of cheaters, and so at least I can read my phone now.
Right.
And then my neighbor is actually my eye doctor, and so I called her, and another one's on order.
You should be okay then. And then the next day, which was your day 9, Muskrat Shelter to Betty Creek campsite. I remember that campsite myself, actually. It was pretty cold with frost on the tent. How bad is it? How are you coping with the weather inside the tent?
I mean, my sleeping bag's really pretty good, and if I wear everything and get in my sleeping bag, I'm pretty good.
Yeah. And tell us about the bet you made.
Oh, yeah. So Andrew asked me, well, do you want to make a bet? Do you want to make a bet that the first one who falls then has to buy the other one dinner? And I'm like, okay. And so, like, about a half hour after that, I fall. My first fall. I'm like,
She was looking at her phone.
I was looking at the phone because I was trying to get a hostel.
That's exactly why you don't text and drive.
Yes, exactly. It certainly is. Because do you find, by the way, I find, especially with the Appalachian Trail, that I'm looking at my feet all the time. So I miss a lot of things because I'm looking at my feet. Because foot placement is an incredibly important thing, isn't it?
It's huge. I like my neck for the first 3 days hurt because I was just looking down all the time.
All those roots are perfect hooks for your foot to go into.
Absolutely. So, in my first hike, I did 46 major falls rather, and 43 second time. So you've only had one between you in 10 days. That's 2 weeks. That's pretty
bad.
So, and of course, the highlight, the first 100 miles is celebrated by going up and over Albert Mountain. It looks like nothing on the profile, but man, it's pretty upright, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, it's those rocks are just straight up, and whoever many years ago was nice enough to kind of carve some steps into them to help even just a little bit.
But it's cool, though. I think it gives you a little introduction to what it's going to be like up north as well. So, yeah, I'm sure you'd have enjoyed that. And I know you still got your support team, or you just still had your support team with you at the time. And you ended up in Chica and Sunsets. You call it Airbnb. It's no longer a hostel?
Maybe it's both. But it was just 2 bedrooms, and it was 2 bedrooms, and it was nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, they I know they kept it very nice. All the comments were so great. But I thought they had changed away from being an Airbnb, a hostel rather. And you, oh, that's right. I highlighted the bits in your text that I kind of wanted to talk about as well. You had some really bad weather next day, winding stair gap to wire bowl shelter, and it was you went in your tent and Andrew went in the shelter. Are you going in the shelter most nights, Andrew, or do you like your tent as well?
It was just that one night. I usually stay in the tent, but I knew that there was going to be such bad weather, and I didn't want to be in the tent, so I was like, I'm going to just stay in the shelter. But it was nice because I got to watch the storm go by and the lightning and everything. It was really cool.
And you didn't do that though, Beth.
No, well, there was no room in the shelter. And then
hang on. There's 2 of you hiking, and you wanted to go in the shelter, and Andrew got the first spot, the last spot.
Well, no, I was always going to tent. I don't like those shelters. I don't want to have mice with me sleeping and stuff. And so I was always going to put up my tent, and so I was looking fairly early for a spot that was flat, and it was really hard to find a spot that was flat. Most of it was, like, I don't know. And but the rain had it was hailing when we got into there, and then but just a little bit, and then the storm passed, and then we knew another storm was coming, so I put up my tent before it started storming again, and then got in it, and it was hailing on me, and like I was trying to get the hail off of the tent. So
oh my gosh,
it was crazy. It was kind of crazy, but so my tent worked great.
Did it really?
Yeah.
So what did you do? Just you cinch it right down tight to the floor as much as you can?
Yeah. I had all the stakes all the way in.
And have you got the thing you can connect to the tent to make it a freestanding tent?
I do, but I don't have the poles yet. But I have a map in my pickup.
Right. Okay. Right. And then next day on the way into NOC, I know you and I hiked with Betty last year, and she got to the NOC, tried to get to the NOC, but had to turn back because she was a bit concerned about the walk down, because it's quite tight, isn't it? And you're quite close to the edge of a crevice. How do you enjoy that walk down into NOC?
Oh, that one was so much fun because that road before Janelle, Beth's sister, took our bags, and we got to slack pack the last 7 miles.
Nice.
And so, we were feeling like we had all this energy, and we actually ran down it.
We did.
I think you may have mistyped something. Maybe you said which was fun. You should have put which was dumb. Trail running down the mountain is not a great idea. What are you thinking, Beth?
I wanted to win the other bet.
Quite right too. And you had a bit of trail magic that day as well.
Yeah. We got there were 3 guys that one of them had done the whole trail before, and they had great trail magic. It was in the morning, and we got eggs and hash browns and like snacks, and they even had a bathroom in there. They had a bathroom there.
What was it? Porta potty? I mean, what was it?
Yeah, it was kind of like a porta potty. I mean, but not a full size porta potty. It was just like a little tent around a little, I don't know. It was great. Yeah.
And then Janelle, who's been supporting you, this was day 12. She left, and
right.
How do you feel about that? Is that now your support team gone?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. We didn't see her every day, anyway, and so it just made sense that she just stayed for that amount of time, and we were very grateful because we could always get food, every couple days out of there.
Sure. And the thing that happened to you, which happened to me, and I don't think I've ever heard many people talk about it, is the ice crystals when you walk up out of NOC, because it happened exactly the same thing happened to me. I thought, my God, what's going on? And it did look like it was, or feel like it was snowing. But tell everybody what that's like.
Oh, we were just walking, and all these little things were dropping on me or on us, and we were looking around, and I was thinking they were seeds or something. My mind was trying to make sense of what this was, and then Beth goes, "This is ice." It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And sure enough, it was all this ice that was up there from the night before, still at like 12:30 in the afternoon. You would think that they would be gone by 10 at least.
Yes, I agree. And it's fantastic to see, isn't it? It looks beautiful. I had some great pictures of it as well.
Oh.
And that night, you stayed at a campsite and then you played the Zoom trivia with your friends from back home. My God, leave home alone.
It was really fun. We had so there's 3 rounds always, and the first round is general knowledge. The second round is music, and the third round is always like a specialty. And we were really cold by the third round, so we said, "Oh, we gotta go."
Yeah, and this is our first time checking in with all our trivia friends since we started it. Yeah,
that's really cool. And then, by the way, the rest of this is going to be about you, Andrew, because your life went to shit after that, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. Just shortly after the trivia, I was situating in my tent, getting ready to go to bed, and I rolled over and I put my elbow down on my mattress and popped a big hole in it. Oh. So I had a big hole in my mattress, and I tried patching it up. But then it was just a slow air leak all night long. So every time I woke up, I had to blow it up. And then
it's exhausting, isn't it? It's happened to me as well. It's exhausting.
And so I didn't get much sleep. And then the next morning when I was making breakfast, I poured the hot water into the pouch and zipped it closed, or I thought it was. Yeah. And I even checked, I tugged on it to make sure it was closed, and I thought it was. And so I shook it up and then spilt all the hot boiling water all over my hand, and then when I was packing up my tent, I thought I had everything out, but forgot that I put my sunglasses in the pocket. So I rolled up my sunglasses in the tent, and they're still in there. I haven't even.
I think it's the trivia that sent you over the top. I mean, really?
Yeah, maybe.
So what happened to the sunglasses? Are they okay?
No, I don't know. They're still in the tent.
Oh, my God. And then you got a couple of blisters as well, I understand. So you really have had a pretty tough time.
Yeah, but they're not anything too major, but first blisters after 2 weeks. So I'll take that.
Yeah. How are you treating them, by the way?
Oh, I just put some moleskin on just now, before the call here.
Oh, right. Okay. So, it's good. Yes, good. This was yesterday, I suppose, wasn't it? Yeah. And you also did Jacob's Ladder. And everybody who goes up there is not expecting it. It is massively uphill, isn't it?
It is.
How was it for you?
It was so hard. And we didn't look to see that was what it was. And so it was like, what in the world is this? It's like you're straight up almost. Gosh, it was hard.
Yeah. So you're 2 weeks in now. And is it fun still? Are you enjoying it? Have you got the sucky days as well? I mean, what's the general overall impression?
I'm still having fun.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think we had this conversation either yesterday or the day before. Like, what do you think we'll give out first, our brain or our bodies? And we both agreed that it would probably be our bodies first.
Now, your body would be fine. You're getting stronger and stronger, I'm sure. Are you losing weight, by the way, Andrew?
Last I checked, I was down a couple pounds, but the other night we went out to eat and I had 2 big burritos and 3 tacos.
Excellent. Is that guilt-free eating, which is an amazing thing. Actually, I was talking to Dave yesterday, and he said he ate so much. He was sick. He was ill the next day because he just didn't stop eating. And he felt awful the next day. But look, I'm so glad you're doing well, and I appreciate these texts, Beth. They really allow me to sort of see into how your hike's going. So keep them coming, and we'll catch up again next week, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
You know that day that Andrew had at the end? We all have them at some time or other. You think you're going along well, then stuff hits you in the face and it just keeps on coming. It's part of the embrace the suck philosophy that is so important if you're going to finish this hike. It's a long way. You're out there for a long time and things aren't going to go your way every day. But when days like that happen, as Andrew did just now, you go through it, you regroup, you laugh about it, and you keep on going. It's not rocket science, but it takes a certain type of resilience to laugh in the face of adversities that happen to all of us. I think Andrew may have just passed a big test. So that's the show today. I want to thank those of you who empathised and commiserated about both my accident and my colonoscopy. It's like I'm on trial. I'm going through an Andrew day. It too shall pass. I'll see you next week.